was my girlfriend's best waifu? That's one way to start a countdown. BioWare has a knack for making games with huge worlds, deep narratives, and amazing characters, and for me, Dragon Age Origins takes the cake. Sorry, Mass Effect, I want to like you, but I still have those petty hangups over that stupid cover system. Okay, just speaking seriously for a moment though, I'm also just more into the fantasy setting than sci-fi, and Dragon Age is basically Dungeons & Dragons. Seriously, they both have dragon in the name. It seems like a lot of these fantasy games try really hard to emulate the Dungeons & Dragons experience. Baldur's Gate does well with the role-playing aspect, Diablo does well with the dungeon-crawling aspect, but I feel Dragon Age came the closest to truly replicating the feel of Dungeons & Dragons. You get to create your own characters, you make your own choices, you go on a fantastical adventure with 6 to 8 party members, all of them lovable, hateable, and somewhere in between, and of course, the usual goofy party shenanigans.
We, sir, are performers from the Antiva City Circus, the famous Broma Brothers.
You don't look like brothers.
How can you say that? Are your eyes failing? Look at us, we are twins. Not identical, of course, but twins, nonetheless.
I'm the pretty one.
Someone rolled a nat 20 on Bluff and made a DM very, very salty.
You are a true warrior and worthy of respect.
Yes! You also get an animal companion and you don't need to be a druid. And guess what? He's awesome!
Who's a widow butt kicker? Who rips out the throats of mutated zombies? You're such a good boy.
That's one of the biggest drawing factors of Dragon Age for me. Despite your character being a blank slate to paint yourself on, there's plenty of character intrigue and development to be had from this colorful cast of misfits. This goes even further with the really open-ended choice system. You get plenty of opportunities to talk to your allies, and I like how it's never really clear which word choices do what. I mean, yeah, it would be cool to get some voice acting, but I prefer how it keeps me on my toes when trying to console Liliana or trying to get around Sten's stoic exterior. I enjoy listening to everyone, all the while we're on a quest to put a stop to the Blight. And speaking of quests, the game itself has you exploring dungeons and ruins, fighting monsters and people alike, and all of it done from a really well-made tactical combat system. With all the different ways you can build your character, there are a ton of options. You could be the warrior in the front lines, you could be the assassin dishing out damage from the shadows, or you could be like me and rain down storms from on high. With so many choices and branching paths, no two playthroughs are ever the same. You could be the righteous paladin, the remorseless rogue, the sheltered mage, or anything in between. In Dragon Age, the world is your oyster. Yes, Metroids are a galactic threat. They are deadly predators and need to be eradicated. However, they can be studied, they can be countered, they can even be lovable in baby form. For that reason, I'll take the Metroids any day over the X-Parasites. I bet you $1 million that anytime someone talks about horror elements in a non-horror game, Metroid Fusion is mentioned at least once. One of the reasons being that Fusion has one of the tightest stories in the series. Not only did they give it a reason for one of the biggest complaints in the series to be present, power loss due to lack of suit, but they made the powers you're trying to collect to survive hunt you down and kill you. Fusion also might have my favorite version of Samus. She's depicted as a reserved and pragmatic warrior who does what she needs to do, but has the morality to think about what is right. You can tell she's seen a lot, but she's been able to push forward without her past bringing her down. And then there's the setting. The BSL Research Station is a facility that studies different life forms, so there's actually a good reason for having so many different environments like a frozen sector or a nocturnal sector in close proximity. And that brings me to this game's foreboding atmosphere. One of the best elements to horror is power loss. The space station you explore is devoid of any people, giving you that sinking feeling of isolation. Your only source of solace is your computer CO, who is also a callback to Samus's former commander. And that really doesn't sit too well with Miss Erin either. And then there's your enemy. The X-Parasites are horrid abominations that can infect, copy, and kill their hosts. This almost happened to Samus, but thankfully she survived thanks to a Metroid vaccine. However, it also gave birth to the SAX, and you all know how I feel about... Those eyes have no soul! I also have to give a shout out to the game's soundtrack and sound design. More than half of the incredibly chilling atmosphere would be lost without it. And finally, this game just feels really good. Killing enemies is fun, wandering around and finding secrets is always satisfying. The boss fights are thrilling and intense, and all the while, Fusion keeps you on your toes by utilizing Murphy's Law to the fullest. Overall, I love the Metroid games in general. Yeah, I'll admit I have a weird soft spot for Other M, warts and all, but Metroid Fusion is the one I'll come back to any day. My parents were the responsible type that looked at the games I played before they bought them for me, so younger me wasn't able to get my hands on a lot of M-rated games. And by the point where I was allowed to play these types of games of my own volition, I was a little turned off by hyper-violent, sex-crazy, drug-using, gang-glorifying curse-a-minute titles.
It's kind of a miracle that I love Saints Row 4.
I think what made me want to give Saints Row 4 a shot was because the gameplay and cutscenes I saw in passing seemed tongue-in-cheek rather than a straight-faced glorification of what it depicted. And boy, was that the understatement of eternity. To say Saints Row takes nothing seriously is like saying Rabbit Luigi thinks Metal Gear might be worth talking about. You play a displaced President Gang Lord Nolan North, at least I did, who gets transported into the Matrix by a classy alien and gets superpowers by completing weird missions like insurance fraud. There's even less of a reason for the Matrix to exist in this version, but given the tone, you can easily let it slide. I know part of the original draw to Saints Row were the cars and stuff, but why use a car when you can leap tall buildings without getting a wedgie? And if you thought that was an out-of-nowhere reference, then this game definitely ain't for you. What with figuratively setting itself on fire and the most glorious roast of itself and everything around it. While some of the roasts are pretty in your face, like, gee, I wonder what this is referencing, some of the little take-thats are more subtle, believe it or not. Like dissing how most games have you romance a character.
Hey Kinsey, you wanna
Let's go.
That's not inaccurate. Not in real life, honey. Oh my gosh.
With the extreme irreverence, the fast-paced power trip gameplay, the wacky story, and the well-designed mission structures and city, everything about this game is over-the-top, silly, high-octane, and every session you leave with just the goofiest smile on your face. Except for the part where I had to make the hardest moral decision of my life.
Do you want to be the president who cured cancer or the president who solved world hunger?
Eeny, meeny, miny.
Because of my hectic schedules and frequently changing setups, it's difficult for me to commit to something like a Let's Play. It's honestly a miracle I managed to complete my run-through of Tony Hawk's Underground and KH2 Final Mix. In terms of hack and slash gameplay, Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix is a close contender for the very best I've ever played. Well, close contender. Antiform kind of brings things down, you know? No, I'm not salty, you're salty! The reaction commands sound like a really bad idea and seem like they make the battles too easy, but I'd rather take a really flashy cutscene power trip instead of not being able to guard. No, I'm not still salty! Traveling to new Disney worlds has always been a joy for this franchise. In Kingdom Hearts 2, we not only saw newcomers such as Mulan and the Lion King, but we also saw continuing stories like Beauty and the Beast and Hercules. Even though when you occasionally step back and realize, hey, Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy characters are talking and this is really surreal, you don't care because of scenes like this.
Did you forget who you're talking to? I am the Lord of the Dead!
No wonder no one wants to die.
Oh, get wrecked!
Kingdom Hearts 2 wasn't afraid to be gritty and rip your heart out a little to get the desired result. I don't know about you, but I felt my childhood die a little inside when Pooh forgot about me. It's easy to think that Kingdom Hearts 2 hides behind its flashy visuals, smooth combat, and memes about how useless Donald is, but that would be doing it a disservice. The combat is fluid once you get the hang of it, the gummy sections are much better than the first one, the bonus bosses are memorable, being either the best in the series or teeth-grindingly awful, and the inventory and level up systems are more intuitive. And I haven't even gotten started with everything Final Mix added. An awesome new drive form, new items to find, and a more comprehensive and challenging endgame that's also a nostalgia trip? Yeah, you get to fight every single Organization 13 member that you missed from Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. They didn't have to put this much effort into creating these flashy and creative extra boss fights, but they did. As much as I love to make fun of it, Kingdom Hearts is so earnest and sincere that you really can't stay mad at its blunders like the nonsense story or the occasional frustrating boss. As cheesy as this sounds, it's a series with a lot of heart, and that resonates with me. I've been a fan of the series since the first installment, but 2 took everything that I liked from the original game and subsequent plot side quests and made them better. And Final Mix doubled that. Except Atlantica, that could go straight to the 9 hells.
Oh, come on, Josh. It really wasn't that bad in the second game.
Sweet as poopsies, hasten to my side.
Carry on.
I'm so glad I have your permission.
For me, choosing a favorite from the Legend of Zelda franchise is like trying to choose between stovetop and oven-baked mac and cheese. For the longest time, I had serious trouble choosing which one of these masterpieces to put on the list. Breath of the Wild took the world by storm. Twilight Princess is considered by many to be the best objectively, and there are those who still appreciate the classics like Link to the Past, and there's the good old N64 debate between Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. Even the lesser titles still have a good amount of quality to them, but in the end, my heart lies with the one with the creepy moon face and the masked salesman who took way too many happy pills. Majora's Mask is essentially the sequel to Ocarina of Time and it is filled to the brim with unexpected design choices. Right from the beginning, this game just oozes a disturbing sense of dread. We have the possessed Skull Kid, Link being horrifically transformed into a Deku Scrub, a carnivorous moon spelling out our impending doom, and the happy mask salesman who seriously needs to be put on a watch list. Please let go of the small child or I'm calling the cops. The game plays a lot like Ocarina of Time, which makes sense, but unlike the grand quest of Hyrule where the fate of the world hangs in the balance, Majora's Mask shifts the focus more towards side questing. Oh, there is still a big quest to do. You can't really ignore that giant moon that's gonna feast on Termina like oven-baked mac and cheese, but thanks to the literal favor of the gods, you have all the time you need. The masks are also a big part of it. Sure, some of them only exist to gain a single heart piece or just to get other masks, but many of these have character development and stories tied to them. The cafe questline involves several of these masks and it's quite the heartstring tugger. And I think that's why I prefer this game more. Ocarina of Time was a fantastically designed game with an amazing land and beautiful environments. But Majora's Mask was about people. It was about emotions, relationships, struggles. It was dark, it was heavy, and at times, it was beautiful. That's what cinches it for me. I'll always love Ocarina of Time, but I think I love Majora's Mask just a bit more. You know how wrestling fans get annoyed when people tell them professional wrestling is fake? These fans don't get mad because they want to live in denial. They know it's fake. They know it's basically a testosterone-filled soap opera. They don't care because watching wrestling is fun. They just like seeing strong people beat the crap out of each other and be super melodramatic about it.
Dynasty Warriors is pretty much the same way.
I've been playing the franchise since Dynasty Warriors 5, and everyone since then has managed to be this bright and entertaining feast for the eyes and ears. But picking my favorite of the bunch has always been like picking my favorite child. In fact, by the time this list comes out, I might have already changed my mind. It's usually been between Dynasty Warriors 5 Empires, Dynasty Warriors Strike Force, Dynasty Warriors 7, and Dynasty Warriors 8 Extreme Legends. Each of these games has something I like. Empires has creatable characters, a strategy element, and ruling a kingdom is fun. Strike Force swaps out bodies flying everywhere for players flying everywhere, and sky battles, super forms, and a combat and loot system reminiscent of Phantasy Star. 7 actually plays the drama and feels up effectively, and 8 Extreme Legends delivers the most streamlined and accessible experience. And today my mood is feeling Strike Force. When this game came out, everyone and their mother compared it to Dragon Ball Z. Cliched? Yes. Inaccurate? No. You have super forms. You fly around in chaotic, high-octane clashes, sometimes a giant creature's thrown in. Chi powers your special abilities. The resemblance is uncanny. Denying the comparison is worse folly than pursuing Lu Bu. What makes Dynasty Warriors Strike Force unique is that it's much less about the 1 versus 100 mechanics that the series built itself upon. Enemies are bunched into smaller groups, but now there are more active stage hazards and more different kinds of monsters to compensate. There's a more comprehensive loot system in place as well. Even though the game is much less story-driven, I like that they added many more mythological elements. Hulao Gate is now a giant monster. When Zhuge Liang dies, spoiler warning, there's this whole heavenly themed mission line. The Tiger of Wu is a literal tiger you have to fight. And this game has online co-op. So yeah, it's like a frenetic and fast-paced version of Monster Hunter, or Phantasy Star Online if anyone still remembers that game. And yes, we do it all listening to the traditional hair metal instrumentals in the background. Everything can use more metal. Everything. I know know Dynasty Warriors gets a lot of flack for being repetitive, and it kind of is. However, its presentation, flash, and camp is plenty of a distraction to keep you entertained. Each game does something new with the gameplay, even though the story itself hasn't changed in the past 17 years. Yeah, Dynasty Warriors as a whole is niche. You have to be a part of a selected group of people in order to like it. Many times, we happy few can't seem to put our finger on why we love this series so much despite experience and all these other different games saying that these elements shouldn't work. So, we just sit down and have fun anyway. What happens when you give a Greek mythology buff and memer trash a game with Greek meme mythology trash and a metrosexual Hades?
There will be unbridled joy.
Kid Icarus Uprising is a fast-paced shoot-'em-up with goofy humor, customizable weapons, and a colorfully irreverent world. And it finally gives some personality to some of the nightmare fuel from the NES hard game of old. It's almost hard to say anything about this game because ever since it came out, we Countdown artists and video game critics have been singing its praises at the top of our lungs. Maybe I could talk about the level design, which is balanced between the flying sections where you shoot first, ask questions later, and the ground sections, which necessitates a bit more strategizing. Which leads into the combat system, with a reticle focusing your line of fire and magnitude of the shot, and the wonky way you have to position your hand in order to play properly gives people the most fun case of carpal tunnel a doctor's ever seen. Yeah, some people seem to have a problem with the controls, even with the weird stand that the game included, but I never really did. The best part about this game for me would definitely have to be the individual characters over the story. The story is really fun with a few interesting twists, except for the pointless aura mark, but when you had characters like the flamboyantly evil Hades, wide-eyed doofus Pit, sassy Spitfire Veriti, and the grumpy disaffected middle child Dark Pit in your cast, the story almost becomes unimportant. People who know me know I love this game, so much that's bled into my brony work at the TF2 analysis series. #shameless plug. Team Fortress 2 is just fun. The class types are stereotypical, but enjoyable. You have the psychotic medic, the fast-talking scout, the dignified sniper, and you've probably heard all of this ad nauseum. Thanks a lot, Boffles Minion, and your 50 billion TF2 countdowns. Even after a decade, this game will not die, despite Valve's best efforts to not care about anything anymore. It's still incredibly fun. The weapons are still complex and diverse enough to give each session you play interesting flair, and I still find myself going in to play a few rounds every once in a while. There's a plethora of great content to enjoy, even though I usually play Dust Bowl exclusively.
Look, I have fun with it, alright? Shut up!
When I'm not feeling the Dust Bowl itch, I play some Man vs. Machine, which is the best thing to ever come to TF2. Tower defense missions have never been more fun than this. Funnily enough, my favorite class to play in MVM is the Scout, as the role of collecting money and getting that perfect bonus triggers that dopamine like nothing else. Even more funny, the Scout's role in Man vs. Machine is more of a support tank role. Does it make sense? Nope. Is it stupid amounts of fun? Oh heck yes! And don't even get me started with the modding community. You can play many different kinds of games here, such as the 1 vs. 100 style Saxton Hale mode, the goofy ×10 servers, or even traveling in space! Yeah, it's not clean or orderly and requires a little bit of tolerance for chaos, but then again, chaos and disorder is what made it special in the first place. It's allowed a community to run wild with their creativity and imagination and have fun with all their friends. Well, time to play more Dust Bowl. Alone.
Black Ops, weapons free.
Remember when Call of Duty wasn't bad? Fiery Joker Productions remembers. Man, I remember when Call of Duty was my go-to shooter each year. I couldn't wait for new titles to come out, and I'd try to get them on launch day. It was even my #1 overhated game series back in 2013.
Oh gosh, I'm getting old!
Even though the modern stereotype of brown, samey looking shooters kind of evolved from Call of Duty, and the series itself kind of succumbed to its own cliches, in my opinion, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 did it the best. The campaign was one of the best parts of playing the games, and Modern Warfare 2 was no different. Every mission had that one thing in it that made it stand out. Being airlifted through a crevice, breaching doors was fun before everyone stole the idea, and one of my personal favorites, running across rooftops in an almost comically hectic test of reflexes and survival. Most of the characters aren't anything to write home about, but Makarov made you despise him, and I eagerly anticipated killing him in the next game. And where else other than a Call of Duty campaign could you see things like this?
Bad example.
The multiplayer was probably some of the best it's ever been, giving you dozens of new gameplay modes and expanding on everything that made Call of Duty 4 great. Almost as big a jump from the normal Super Smash Bros. To Super Smash Bros. Melee. Almost. You had new weapons, battle tags, perks, and especially the new kill streaks. Inappropriately giggling as you chase someone with a Predator missile, cackling like Suma Yi as you blind people with the counter UAV, and chortling like a fawful as you bring in the Apache helicopter. But the pinnacle of evil laughter comes from that coveted 25 kill streak reward, the game-ending nuke. I've only gotten it 3 times before I found out that making the enemy team suffer with the EMP was easier to obtain and felt more rewarding. And I know this is psychotic to say, but I really enjoyed a lot of the really BS kills that happened via throwing knives and that really broken care package glitch when the game first came out. Does anyone else remember that?
Oh gosh, I'm getting old. After all these years, memories don't die.
If you've seen my videos for any length of time, it should come as no surprise this is my favorite game. It has everything I like. Dungeon crawling, brawling, treasure hunting, cooperation and competition, diverse levels, pretty environments, awesome metal soundtrack, over-the-top weapons and abilities, some hack and slash elements, fun boss battles, semi-creatable characters, and a goofy atmosphere that takes itself just the right amount of seriously. Now, Gauntlet is not a complex series. You go from point A to B and destroy anything that gets in your way, but it's the journey that makes it fun. You destroy creatures that infinitely spawn out of generators until you get to the end of the level, and on the way, you collecting gold and power-ups to do so more effectively. And make sure you collect them all, otherwise Scorn will laugh as you leave and make you feel awful. In the original Gauntlet Legends, you only had the realms of mountain, town, castle, and ice. There was also the arcade, which had mountain, desert, forest, and castle. So, when Dark Legacy not only combined all of these levels, expanded them, and added brand new ones, little old me was more jazzed than Big Band's Blockbuster. I also loved the different worlds you could travel to. Even though you were traveling into 4 or 5 sections in each area, each level felt distinct and unique, for the most part, and made you feel like you were actually going somewhere. But at this point, I'm beating around the bush as to why this is my favorite game. It's my favorite game because of the memories. I played this game with my 2 brothers ad nauseum, and we're still not tired of it. We got on each other's nerves, sabotaged each other into traps, and gave ourselves high fives for each boss we defeated. Every time we get together nowadays, we always try to play this. It's my favorite game because it's the one that had the biggest impact on me. It's the one that made me happiest. I mean, that's why I dedicated an entire 15-minute rant to a potential sequel I want made. Because I want others to experience the joy this series brought me.
Whenever I speak with others about their favorite game, this is usually the reason why. Not for how good its graphics are, not how smart its puzzles are, or how good its story was, or how polished its gameplay was, but for the memories. I'm the Fiery Joker, and let's keep making memories.
Cut!